Oh man, everybody's got his own set of challenges. I think so. It's funny working in this space in New Orleans because I talk to a lot of people now in other spaces. I was talking to people literally in Detroit this morning, and you know, all these places, and they're like, "Man, New Orleans, like all like you guys got it really figured out." And I'm like, "Oh man, if you only knew." And there's only so many times you can say, "Well, actually," right? That so much of this is, I think, you know, the beauty and problem of New Orleans, I think, is so much of this culture is in spite of, right? Everything exists, you know, kind of out of struggle. It continues. All these challenges we have, the culture is still here. People are still gonna make it. They're gonna make it happen. And I think also people doing this work in the cultural space, you know, part of it is like you have to understand like these are people's like, families, identities, right? This is spirituality. There's all these things that are tied up into it. There's not an organizing problem or a money thing. It's like this is who people are. It's identity, and that's separate from a zoning change. And so I think thinking through what that actually means here in this space is, in that sense, I don't think the culture is at risk. And this is coming from me outside, right? Doing this work. I think a lot of the thing is this sort of exploitation, extraction of people's creative and cultural labor that has been long-standing in New Orleans, many places, but New Orleans certainly you can trace it back. You know, I wrote something a couple years ago about what was it? Like the World's Fair here in the 1890s, I think.
1884.
There you go, 1880. Thank you. And how that one of the first big sort of cultural showcases was super racist and extractive at that time, but also like the narrative that has been done isn't super different from narratives that still get put out in tourism literature today, right? It's the way that the tourism industry again will use people's images, use that. And one of the things I've literally been in meetings and confronted people with pictures is you're advertising like street performers at the banner image of the NewOrleans.com website. You're advertising a banner image. You're also funding the private patrol that is shutting those exact same street performers down from playing on the street. So you're making money off their image. The money you're making off then funds the patrol that shuts them down to stop them from making money, right? And that's like the most on the nose example I've ever had, but that happens so often, right? In that you're happy to make money off it, but when that back end support needs to happen, suddenly you're not there. You're buying out people's places, right? You're not stopping the inequities. You're not addressing it. And, you know, again, I know this isn't the only place that does it, but I think here it's really notable. And the more research you do, particularly in the history of the tourism industry, you see the pattern of that continuing to do up. And so, you know, one of the big challenges is how do you disrupt that pattern? How do you create new revenue streams in a system that is ingrained and inequitable and has been here for so long? I think another example that came up during the pandemic was with commercial property tax assessments. And I know that, and it's been a minute, so I might not get the details exactly right at this point, but it's researchable where the assessor worked with Stephen Perry, who was head of the New Orleans Company at that time, and his folks. And basically they gave all these large commercial properties big breaks on their assessment because of COVID. And they couldn't, like their taxes went down, whatever, because they couldn't, you know, hotels didn't have guests, et cetera. But those tax breaks all went to like the biggest hotels and commercial spaces, which are largely owned by white folks from outside of New Orleans, right? Or they're national companies. And so they got a big break, but local businesses and property owners maybe did not. So the greater tax burden fell on these local folks and sort of exacerbated the inequities of people trying to face already struggling. Now they're left without the break, and now they're shouldering a larger percentage of the tax burden of the city because the tourism industry. And so those are the kind of things that continue to happen. And to me, like, if you want to disrupt these inequitable systems, like more focus on that really would be helpful in the greater sense. But that's in this day and age, that's a tough nut to crack, right?